coast to coast, direct from Austin. You're listening to the Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
From his Central Texas Command Center, deep behind enemy lines, the information war continues. It's Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show on the second hour of Sunday, August 10th, 2014. Now, we're going to go back to your calls in the next segment on ISIS. We just had a special report from Alex Jones, as well as he joined us at the beginning of the last hour, talking about the escalation now that we see going back in Iraq. What's really behind this? Why is it necessary for us to do it now? Why didn't they do something earlier? What was going on in Syria as we saw al-Qaeda being rebranded, being re-equipped, being retrained as ISIS? All that's in the special report. You can find that on Infowars.com. But I wanted to go over some breaking news in this segment about what's happening today on Drudge Report. We have a Missouri crowd. We had a shooting going on there yesterday. There was a black teenager who was killed by the police. He was shot 10 times. Now, the police are saying that they suspected him of shoplifting. This is a guy that his family said had never been involved in any fights, was not a part of any gang, had never been in any trouble. He was being arrested, and according to the police, there was a struggle as they were putting him in the police car. A single shot was fired, and then he ran with his hands up. Now, a witness, and then he was shot 10 times and died in the streets. In the aftermath of that, there were hundreds of people that took to the streets, and they were shouting, "Kill the police," very angry as this grandmother who was nearby, he was on his way to her house. She said, "My grandson never got into a fight even. He was looking forward to getting on with his life. He was on his way. He was ready. He had graduated from high school. He was beginning college in just a couple of weeks." The question is, when you look at this, when you look at the rules of engagement, of course, there was a story on Friday that was on Infowars.com, picked up by Drudge. Walmart shopper was shot dead by cops after he picked up a BB gun. This is a guy picking up a BB gun in Walmart that is sold by Walmart. He's walking around in Walmart, and of course, this soldier, I think it was a Marine that saw him, thought something was up, called the police. The police come in and shoot him dead right there in the store. I mean, that's what we're seeing now. This kind of zero tolerance of citizens, almost kind of a Judge Dredd kind of violence where, hey, this guy is walking around with a gun, I'll shoot him dead. This guy is running from us. He shouldn't be running. As the police chief in Ferguson, this is Ferguson, Missouri, said, I wouldn't think anybody would run away from the police if they didn't have anything to hide. And, of course, we've heard that here from our own police chief who says, hey, just don't ever run from the police. Well, when we see this kind of violence happening in the streets, especially when young people who know what's going on in their neighborhood see this kind of thing happening over and over again, the question is, what did happen there? Well, we're not going to know for quite some time. Photography is not a crime got involved in this. Of course, Carlos Miller, and the reason he got involved in it was because the primary witness who got this on film on her camera had her camera confiscated. And then the police have said, this is going to take us a very long time to do this investigation. It's going to take weeks for them to, as long as 6 weeks, to determine whether or not this young man had alcohol or drugs in his system. Why would it take that long? I don't think it takes that long to do an investigation. I think they're waiting for the people to die down, the anger to die down. And there's also a report that's up on Drudge today. Report says that robots will take over more jobs than they create. Now, this is a conference that's being held in Elon University in Charlotte, North Carolina. And they asked the people there who are experts in robotics technology, did they think that there would be more jobs created by these robots, or would they take jobs away from us? And they were pretty much split 50-50. 52% said that they thought they would create more jobs, but 48% feared that the role of artificial workers would be unstoppable, that humans would not be able to adjust in time to avoid massive unemployment and social disruption. And they point out that the experts are saying that by 2025, notice that number. You keep hearing 2020, 2025. That has been on the calendar of the globalists for a very, very long time. They keep sticking to that number. They're saying you're going to have driverless cars, robotic doctors and nurses, and intelligent digital agents that are going to be part of your daily life. They're going to have some radical change by then. They've been playing that for a long time. That is why they are stepping up the police state. internally in this country because they're concerned about the unrest. Stay with us. We'll be right back with your calls. That number again is 877-789-ALEX.
This is Alex Jones for InfoWarsLife.com. The latest in preparedness is now here. An electrically stabilized colloidal silver solution that can be added to both your home cabinet and preparedness pack alike. Concentrated to 30 parts per million in what has been dubbed the Survival Silver Solution. The new InfoWars Life Silver Bullet Colloidal Silver is the answer for you and your family. And it's entirely free of toxic artificial additives that are loaded into many products. The InfoWars Life Silver Bullet Silver is so powerful that it is concentrated into a 2-ounce bottle and is not recommended for extended continual use. This is not a low-grade formula. We are working with one of the top laboratory manufacturers in the United States to bring you the best form of colloidal silver using electrical processes within a base of deionized water for your preparedness storage. For your home kitchen, purchase your bottle of InfoWarsLife.com Silver Bullet Colloidal Silver today and find other amazing supplements at InfoWarsLife.com.
With your friends.
KLN, Los Angeles. Clone Radio. We play the songs that sound more like everyone else than anyone else. Clone.
Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms. The Republic will rise again when you attempt to take our guns.
I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man.
The answer to 1984 is 1776. You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
Welcome back to The Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, live here in studio. We had Alex Jones, who's on the road, join us in the last hour, break down what he sees behind what's going on in Iraq with ISIS. And we wanted to get your calls, let you weigh in on that. We also wanted to get you to weigh in on what you think about corruption in our country today. Now, 40 years after the resignation of Richard Nixon yesterday, what do you think about corruption? What do you think about impeachment? Is that something we should be pursuing? Of course, Boehner announced that he was not going to pursue impeachment. He had no intention of doing that. As a matter of fact, that was all just a plot from the Democrats that was hatched in the White House. They really want the Republicans to impeach them. So what do you think about that? Should we give amnesty to the undocumented worker in the White House, or should we go after corruption and breaking the law wherever we see it? So I want to take your calls on that. And, of course, the Sunday number is 877-789-ALEX. I'm going to go to RJ in Oklahoma in just one second. But before I do, I want to let you know that this hour of the Alex Jones Show is brought to you by Survival Shield X2. Harvested more than 7,000 feet below the earth, escaping Fukushima's ground effects. It's 50% stronger for the same price as Survival Shield. And that's the original iodine supplement that we had for our listeners. It's a high-purity source of 99.99% pure grade. We're the only one in the world. Extremely hard to achieve this. It's great for a survival kit due to its extra strength. And you can get it in 5 and 10 packs. That's at InfoWarsStore.com. That's Survival Shield X2. Let's go to RJ in Oklahoma. RJ, you want to weigh in on ISIS and what's going on in Iraq. What's your thoughts on this? Okay, I think he's gone now. Let's go to Brad in Louisiana. Brad. Hello, guys. We're having some phone problems here. Not getting him there. Okay, let's go to David in Austin. David. Okay, looks like the phones are not working. So let's give you some news about what's going on with Ebola. We've got warnings, panic, and all over the country. We've got all over the world, I should say. It was just a week or so ago that we had someone get off of a plane in the UK at Gatwick Airport, She'd been vomiting on the plane. As she got off, she collapsed. Everybody was concerned that perhaps it might be Ebola, even though they didn't see blood. So everybody was panicked. We see that in Saudi Arabia, they had a suspected Ebola victim. They tested them. They did not have the virus. We see the same thing happening in Hong Kong. Somebody was suspected of having Ebola. They took them away. However, these incidents show just how easy it would be for someone who did have Ebola to enter the country via the airplanes. And so workers in the UK who are manning the border, who are at the airports, are very concerned about this because they're the ones on the front line. They're the ones who are going to be exposed first. They're essentially, you could say, the canaries in the coal mine. When you start seeing the border staff dropping over, dying in the airport, then you start quarantining that area. But they don't like being the canaries in the coal mine. They said they're terrified. They're threatening to strike. They said that these are staffers at London's Heathrow and Gatwick Airport. They're furious that no measures have been put in place to preserve their health. Well, guess what? No measures have been put in place to preserve our health either. And they're bringing in people into this country who are sick rather than sending the treatments to them. If you remember when John Bound went to the border and reported on that, Falfurrias was the area, he had pictures of people that had died on this rancher's large ranch there, decaying bodies, various states of decomposition. They were talking about how it was breaking the budget of that city to even bury everyone, let alone provide medical treatment. They had a lot of people who were bitten by rattlesnakes as they were coming across, and they said it was costing them a fortune because they were having to fly in antivenom from another location because in the small town they don't have a hospital that has rattlesnake antivenom there. So the antivenom itself is expensive and they had to fly it in. But of course that was cheaper than flying these people to wherever they would get that treatment. And of course it is much easier if you've got some kind of a treatment, you think, for Ebola. There you can see, if you're watching this live on Infowars.com, you can see some of the slides, some of the pictures of the decomposing bodies, some of them just left as skulls out in that area. A lot of people are dying coming across there. That's why it's so amazing to hear this narrative that it is simply 8-year-old children holding their teddy bears, as George Will told us. That is not the case. The young people who are coming across, even if they're escorted by a parent, that ought to be treated as reckless endangerment. But of course, they're giving that a pass. But the point I wanted to make about the Ebola connection is that why would we spend the money to try to fly these people back separately in quarantined airplanes rather than just send the treatment to them to help them if we've got a working treatment? I think it is there in order to raise panic, in order to raise an alarm. And of course, other people have said, follow the money. I think it was Michael Savage took the position that perhaps they're trying to panic the public and then show or pretend that they've got a treatment for Ebola so they can then go out and force vaccinate everyone. And you don't have to do much to get people scared about Ebola. There's a New York Times article today. The title is, Don't Touch the Walls. Ebola Fears Infect an African Hospital. This is an amazing firsthand account of what's going on in Sierra Leone and in Nigeria. They're talking about how so many patients, nurses, and health workers have died in government hospital that many people in the city are seeing the hospitals as a death trap. So they're avoiding the hospitals. And so what they're doing is they're dying in the streets. And as this New York Times writer, Adam Nossiter, went there and was walking through, a Western medical technician yelled out to him, don't touch the wall, don't touch the walls, are totally infected. He said people don't die here in the hospital anymore. He says they're dying in the community, 5 or 6 a day. And of course, in neighboring Liberia and in the capital city of this country, Monrovia, they said 23 health workers have been infected. The president is calling it necessary for the very survival, he says, of our state and for the protection of the lives of our people to quarantine the area to make sure that this doesn't come across the border. Are we doing that in Western countries? Are we doing that in America? No. Instead, we are bringing people in rather than sending the treatment to them, rather than maintaining a quarantine. Why are we violating all of our health protocols from the CDC? He says dead bodies have been appearing on the streets and the houses throughout Monrovia. But with the hospitals closed, they said most of the bodies are being found in the streets and not in the hospitals, and people are not dying in the hospitals. So they said it's a very dangerous place. They're washing their hands 50 times a day. And this last quote here from one of the Doctors Without Borders logistician said, there is no system here. There is no isolation. if you make a mistake, you get infected. And of course, when Paul Joseph Watson was talking to Dick Morris on the radio about this, he was saying, well, there's this disagreement going back and forth as to whether or not it is airborne or whether or not you have to have direct contact with the blood.